Hey guys, the Explorer 4 here, Horrorboy 465, and today we're talking about the third movie in the Resident Evil film franchise, and surprisingly by this point, I'm still not doing a rant. This is not a rant, this is a movie review on Resident Evil Extinction. Now, Resident Evil Extinction came out in 2007, gets a 6.3 on IMDb, directed by Russell Mulcahy. I probably butchered that name, but I know he's famous for pretty much directing the Highlander films. He also directed Razorback. Again, Highlander, I've never really seen those movies. I've heard mixed opinions about the franchise itself, but I did hear some good things about the first movie. So one of these days, I definitely want to give Highlander a watch. But today, I'm talking about Resident Evil Extinction. Of course, the third film in the Resident Evil franchise. And I will say this, at least it does have a really good DVD. It has some decent features on it. It has a commentary, has some making of featurettes, and I really enjoyed the poster there. Pretty cool poster. They put a lot of design into the DVD itself. Which, if y'all know me, I mean, that's a plus for me. I always like it when they take the time to put effort into the packaging, put effort into the DVD itself, and as well as the features. But, Resident Evil Extinction. Now, before I get into the actual storyline, I wanted to show you guys something, because, as you guys know, I did my review for Resident Evil Apocalypse, but I never really showed you guys the DVD because I couldn't find it. Well, the other day I was just looking through my DVD shelf, and of course it was in the wrong place, and I had no clue where it was at for the longest time. I found it randomly on my DVD shelf. For some reason it was just sitting in a random shelf. I have no clue why. But yeah, my DVD of Resident Evil Apocalypse, which I really love this DVD. It's not like a rare DVD at all, but I just love it. I think it's a great DVD. They put a lot of effort into the DVD. Of course, the slipcover, you take it off, and you have the slipcover itself. And they have this really cool idea of putting the artwork in the background. And you have the Nemesis, the zombies, the zombie dog. Pretty awesome artwork. And even the artwork in the disc, I really enjoyed. Which is right there, which is Alice and kind of those the tubes that she wakes up in to get her powers, which leads into this film. I almost dropped that. But leads into this film. And that's pretty much my DVD of Resident Evil Apocalypse. Again, it's not a hard DVD to find at all. I think this might be the only version on DVD of Resident Evil Apocalypse. So if you're wanting to pick this up, it's a 2-disc set, has plenty of features on it. If you're a fan of Resident Evil Apocalypse like I am, I mean, you get 1, 2, and 3 commentaries. You get previews. You get behind the scenes, deleted scenes, outtakes, making ofs, documentaries. I mean, anything. If you're a fan of Apocalypse like I am, I don't know if I'm the only Apocalypse fan out there, but this is my favorite Resident Evil, and I'm really glad they packed this movie with features, because it's very cool seeing how they made this movie. But talking about Resident Evil Extinction Day, I just figured I'd show you guys that real quick. But Resident Evil Extinction pretty much picks up right after Apocalypse, and the T-Virus had escaped Raccoon City, and it pretty much spread all over the world and has caused the world to become a giant desert. And you have Alice once again trying to stop Umbrella. You have the characters from Apocalypse, like you have, I think you have Mike Epps back in this film, as well as you have the guy who played Carlos. He's back in this as well. Oded Fair, he's back in this film as well. You also have Claire Redfield in this movie, and pretty much she's leading this group of survivors, and they're kind of just going from town to town. Their main goal is to go to Las Vegas, and Alice ends up meeting up with them along the way. She also has powers in this film. She can move stuff with her mind. She can basically have telepathic powers, telekinetic powers, and pretty much partially under control of Umbrella. There's some times where Umbrella can kind of tune her out. They can kind of have it to where I didn't mind the idea where they got kind of control of Alice sometimes, and even her pupils become the Umbrella symbol. Didn't mind that. Once again, the movie does start off with a recap of the previous films, and that kind of became the, I don't know, Resident Evil thing. Every movie kind of has a recap by Alice. And basically that's what it is. They're trying to get to Las Vegas. When they get there, they discover that it's complete and utter crap because there are these new zombies, these pretty much hybrid zombies that can run. They're very fast, they're very smart, they're very brutal. Very awesome idea of having these hybrid zombies in this film. They introduce Wesker in this film as well. This is the first movie that kind of have Wesker in it. In the meantime, you have this character, this doctor character, kind of working with the hybrid zombies and also developing what would become I think it became the G virus in this film. If not the G virus, it's very similar to it because he pretty much ultimately becomes a giant creature. And I don't remember if it was exactly the G virus, but it's pretty much similar to it. And he's pretty much this evil doctor guy, and he kind of injects himself with it when he gets bit by a zombie, and it kind of mutates him. And towards the end of the film, you get a fight between Alice and a monster, and Alice helps get everybody else out of there. I think it's just Claire and this other girl. She's left. I think her name's Kmart in the film, Spencer Locke. I think it's her and Claire. They get out of there on this helicopter, and Alice goes into this Umbrella facility and just completely has an awesome ending. And you even have an awesome final shot where it's like it zooms out and there's like 1,000 clones of Alice, and it builds up for a great sequel opportunity until we get to the one that came after it, which will be a review right after this, and that will be a rant for sure. But get out of the story real quick. The movie I actually really enjoy. Now, out of the first 3 movies, it's probably my least favorite of the bunch because for me, this is when a couple of the problems start showing up in the series. Like, the character Alice in this film is much more in the foreground. She's a much more prominent character in this film. She starts to take up a lot of the action scenes to where you're not really having Carlos or anybody else, even Claire Redfield. They're really not doing much in this film. And for me, it's a problem because I always liked Alice as a main character, but for me, it's when they start just forcing her to be in these action scenes all the time, and she always has to save these characters from the game. Like in part 4, it's really bad, where she saves Claire and Chris Redfield like 1,000 times. Same in Retribution, where you have her saving Leon Kennedy. And it's like, dude, these are people from the games. You're making them look weak. And then in this movie, Claire Redfield and Carlos and even Wesker have nothing to do. They literally do nothing. All you see Claire do is shoot a gun a couple times. Carlos, same thing, only he gets bitten and pretty much goes out in a blaze of glory and blows himself up to kill all these zombies. So he's dead. Mike Epps gets bit by a zombie and killed. So it's like, these characters really didn't do much. They just get killed off. And it's like, Alice is really the only person in this movie that really does anything. And that's why I liked Apocalypse and the first Resident Evil. It wasn't just Alice being there and doing the action and getting all the kills. It was, in the first movie, Alice really didn't know who she was till about maybe halfway to the film. And even the second film, Apocalypse, I mean, she had action scenes, but she wasn't like 100% involved in the story. Like to where every action scene she's saving people and making the gaming characters look weak, and it's not like that in Apocalypse. She kind of helps out Joe Valentine, helps with these people, They're still all fighting zombies, and it's not just Alice, killing everything. In this movie, you have that. You also have the fact that you know she kind of has these telepathic powers, and I'm not really a fan of that because you're kind of stepping out of the boundaries of Resident Evil. These movies are already pretty far-fetched Resident Evil films, but now you're putting mind powers in there, and it's like, wasn't Resident Evil about not having powers? It was about being a regular average Joe, a regular person in a very scary situation. You have to watch your ammo, you have to watch, your health and making sure that you have enough space in your inventory. That's what Resident Evil was about. And it's like, in this movie, that kind of eliminates the Resident Evil. Really, there's no Resident Evil in this film, other than Wesker, Claire Redfield, Carlos, and maybe mentioning the T virus. I think they mentioned the G virus, so I can't remember. Maybe they didn't. But you have this very similar creature to the G virus creature. But really, it's not even Resident Evil anymore. Like, even the first movie took place in a lab underground. You still had the suspense there. You still had the camera angles like Resident Evil. Alice was just a normal character. Granted, she had like kung fu and stuff like that, but she wasn't like this character who could blow things up with her mind. And granted, it makes some great shots. Like when there's fire going all around her, and there's these crows flying all around her, and it's kind of this camera does a whole twirl around Mila Jovovich, and it's kind of a really cool shot. But Resident Evil, so it's that. None of the other characters really do anything. Besides Mike Epps and Carlos and Perry Redfield and Kmart, I mean, those are probably decent characters. I didn't really even think that. I don't even think Wesker did really much anything in the film. So Wesker is just kind of there to be in the background, a bad guy to set up in the next movie. I don't know. The rest of the characters really don't do anything. That's the thing. It's like you have a really awesome premise, which to get out of the problems real quick, I love the setting of the film. I love how it's in the desert. I love how it's kind of like a undead version of Mad Max. I love that. The character moments and chemistry between these characters, these survivors, was pretty cool. I liked how Alice showed up and kind of helped them battle off these zombies and these zombie birds, and I like that idea. I like the idea of them wanting to go to Las Vegas, and when they do get there, it's not what they expect. They get there, and it's just a complete wasteland, and there are these hybrid zombies there. When that scene happens, that's a very awesome scene, very intense scene, very just crazy scene with gore effects and practical effects and really well done action. And in that scene, the characters really don't do anything other than Alice, because you kind of see her battling for a minute. And then when Umbrella kind of tampers with her mind a little bit, Alice stops fighting, and the rest of the characters are kind of just getting killed off. They're not really having a chance to fight back. They're always kind of getting killed off. These hybrid zombies pretty much slaughter this entire group of survivors. And Kmart, Alice, and a couple other people are left. And Alice snaps out of it and kills the rest of the hybrid zombies with these really cool looking knives, which also I really like the look of Alice in this film. She has kind of a dust coat with the knives and the guns. I thought it was really cool. And she rides a motorcycle, which I thought was pretty cool. But, I mean, I like that stuff. I like how Alice fights this mutant monster at the end of the film. I love the third act. I didn't really care for the idea of them kind of introducing, I guess, the sister to the Red Queen in this film. I think it was her sister, or maybe it was a much nicer version of the Red Queen. I can't remember. But I didn't really care for that. You don't need another computer program thing running this laboratory because it kind of reminded me of the first movie when they did that. Um, Part of me likes the idea of her having clones because then it's like she could use those to help her battle off Umbrella. But the other part of me goes, kind of a far-fetched idea. I mean, she's already having mind powers, now you're having clones. So, like, one half of me likes it, one half of me is like, it's a little too far-fetched. And that's the thing about this movie, is that it has a lot of great stuff in it. The pacing is great. The look of the film is great. I think it's shot very well. The zombies are awesome in the film. They're very rotten and decayed. They just look very awesome. They made the zombies more intense in this movie, which is pretty cool. I like the practical effects. I even like the CGI effects. They look pretty good. It looks very high budget. I don't know if it was, but it looks great. I like the characters, but they don't really do much in the film. And the problems, I mean, the clone and mind powers a little too far-fetched. It doesn't really have too much Resident Evil in it, even compared to the first two movies, which had Part 2 had a lot of Resident Evil in it. Part 1 had somewhat Resident Evil in it, but this one is when we start leaving Resident Evil. This is when we start going into a whole separate thing than Resident Evil. But the fact that you don't really have Wesker doing anything, the fact that, you know, this is the movie where Alice starts being in the foreground so much. This is when she is the main character. It's all about Alice, and, you know, I wish they wouldn't focus so much on Alice. I feel like they should give, like, Claire Redfield and later movies like Leon Kennedy and Chris Redfield and Barry, all these characters from the game, they don't really do much of anything in these later installments. But it's got a great premise to it, has a great setting. Overall, it's a very good movie. I just don't think it's a very good Resident Evil film. And I don't think it is a perfect film. I think it has some flaws to it. But the overall result of the film is pretty good. I think it's a pretty good movie. It's the last good Resident Evil film. But I enjoy it. I think it's a great movie. I still think it's a great sequel, a great film. It's entertaining, fast-paced, and, you know, just has a lot of great stuff to it. So yeah, really enjoy Resident Evil Extinction. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching my review of Resident Evil Extinction, and the Explorer 4 is out. See you guys later.